This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com. Welcome to the Triple Option. Here's your host, Paul Catalina.
Welcome in, Paul Catalina, Royden Ogletree alongside for your Tuesday. And I'm just going to tell everybody, we're probably going to have, at least Royden is not going to change and Steven's not going to change. But I do believe Chris and Pierre will be flipping days. And maybe we'll see a little bit less of Chris because he keeps getting promoted at work. And it's
I
really
was told
harshing
this
my
was
mellow.
the prime time slot.
It is.
Yeah.
So you here's the thing. I'm saying Royden is the guy who's here. He's not he's not here when he's in like Scotland or something.
It's not like I've missed like 15 shows, but I'm definitely here all the time.
He's here. He's ready to go. What you may not know about Royden has which I've been on several times, a movies podcast. It's big. We're both big movie buffs. I'll just start out today with Oscar nominations were out today. And I have gotten to the point where like I see them, I'm like, oh, okay, good. I saw those movies, or I'm about to watch that one. This is the first year though that like most of the movies nominated are ones that I would see, as opposed to stuff that like I feel like somebody should see.
Seven French people saw in a backyard somewhere.
I would see, and they I saw a stand-up special. I can't remember who it was. He was really good. And somebody, like, he said, did you think the stand-up special was funny? And he was like, no, it was important. That's kind of how I feel about movies now. Like, oh, is it good? Like, oh, it's important, though.
Right.
Like, look, no offense to women talking, but, like, when I saw the preview for that movie, I was just like, this is not one that's going to make me sit through it. Like, like, those things happen, and you get, like, more and more unrelatable movies. And this year there were some relatable ones that I think are good. So, like, this is maybe a year, but again, it was like there was a lot of things that didn't make sense. Like, how do you?
Margot Robbie was in the biggest movie of the year, and she
only one
didn't get nominated. She was Barbie.
She was Barbie, and it was like, well, everybody else did a better job around her as the main character, and you're like, all right. It's also very ironic that the movie is about Barbie finding out, like, in the modern world that it's like a man's world and all this stuff. And then
Ken gets nominated.
And then Ken gets nominated. It's like, and not that he didn't deserve it. He was fantastic in the movie, but
I think everybody came out of the movie was like, Ryan Gosling was awesome. It was like, that wasn't the point.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, everybody was good in the movie. Everything was good. But anyway, it just thought, like, funny. I just thought I would bring that up and get your quick opinions on it.
We'll cover it in full on the One Take podcast.
Yeah.
Go follow us. That'd be great. We just leave a review if you would too.
Yeah. Even if it's what?
Yeah, even if it's like, somebody called us like a cavalcade of idiots one time. I said that.
That's great.
On a review,
great.
which
Yeah.
sure, okay,
sure.
But the thing about the Oscars is that recently, and your viewership is dropping as I talk, but like the recently they have sort of like, okay, no one's watching our show, and that's what this is all about. To get ratings, how can we do that? And so, we'll give nominations to Top Gun Maverick, which was a brilliant movie technically anyway. Mm-hmm. We'll give nominations to some of these things, and they just couldn't ignore some of those things like Barbie. But as far as like the nominations go for like, there's still 5 or 6 nominations where people are like, no one's talking about that, and it happens every year. That movie Nyad, which by all accounts is like a great movie made by the people that made Free Solo, which was an incredible movie, has sat on my front page of Netflix for 5 weeks. No one's talked about it. It's been on the front page of Netflix for that long, but no one's talked about it. That got like 3 or 4 nominations. But regardless, I think they mostly get a lot of things right, and they've started to sort of flip the direction to recognizing people that have not been recognized before by the Academy Awards. Take from that what you will. And also recognizing blockbuster films, which I'm all about. Things that get people like butts in seats. You got to start recognizing those movies.
If everybody likes a movie, guess what? It's good.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, that's the thing. That's
sometimes the most watched movie is the best. Like,
yeah, like if everybody likes it, it's good.
Yeah.
Like, just because it doesn't check off some sort of like box on, on like, oh, they didn't discuss this very important social issue. It doesn't mean it's not a good movie. You can't
look, and some of these movies just don't come out to like Middle America, and I kind of count us as like Middle America. Like they come out on a Tuesday at 3 p.m.
Yeah.
And you're just like, okay, no one's going to go see that. Like no one has seen Anatomy of a Fall in Kansas. Sorry, hadn't seen it. But like, and I haven't even seen it because it hasn't come here. And I've seen like 70 movies this year. So anyway.
Regardless. But there we go. I just wanted your opinion on that as we make small talk to start the show.
Right.
We make small talk to start the show.
I'm not mad at all. Just go follow me on Twitter. Totally not mad or upset about this dumb award show.
No, absolutely. I don't even like, they've become so unwatchable that I'm just like, you know.
They're also boring.
Yeah,
but I can't stop watching it.
Yeah, it's just like, all right. You know, like I wasn't watching a couple years ago and then I found it like, hey, you got to turn this on right now.
Somebody slapped somebody.
Like this is something big's just happened.
Right.
Anyhow, I want to talk about, as we were going to start transitioning a little bit more basketball and like maybe a football topic, an NFL topic, like a college football topic, an NFL topic, and maybe a basketball topic. Each show as we kind of move forward through the football offseason, which is almost here for both. The NFL, we've got 2 more weeks of games, and then that. So. But as we were in the college football offseason, I thought about, like, there are a bunch of second-year head coaches at big spots that, like, who's going to see the biggest jump, who is primed to have the biggest jump in that. And, like, I've got several teams up who I'm curious about. And if I'm leaving anybody out, please, fill in the blanks. But
if you've watched the show for many weeks, you'll know that I'm great with remembering names of people.
But, look, I'll tell you, Scott Satterfield at Cincinnati.
Right.
Matt Rule at Nebraska.
So you were doing first-year head coaches at programs.
At programs.
Okay,
So, like,
I was thinking first-year head coaches in general.
No, yeah, at programs.
I was like, Kenny Dillingham, maybe?
Well, look, he's on there.
Yeah.
Kenny Dillingham. He falls into both circles.
Right.
The Venn diagram of that lands on Kenny Dillingham here. Deion Sanders, Colorado. Ryan Walters at Purdue. And Brent Pry at Georgia Tech and Kenny Dillingham are the ones that jump out to me as the guys who, given their situation, it's going to be interesting to see what they do. And we can start, like, do you want to start with the big ones and, like, wean down to the small ones, or start small and go big?
Well, I'd also add in Hugh Freeze.
Thank
at Auburn.
Hugh Freeze is a really interesting one. Actually, you know what? I can't believe I didn't say Hugh Freeze because
I was thinking Luke Fickell.
And Luke Fickell, Wisconsin. So yeah, these are all guys. So let's start with Hugh Freeze because I want to have this discussion with the two of you. Hugh Freeze is in year 2. Recruiting for high school appears to be going really well for Auburn. Like they are getting guys. Like they're getting guys, 2024 guys. The 2025 class looks like it's already starting out. But the one thing that Hugh Freeze hasn't done is he has not addressed the quarterback position. Like if it were to start today, Peyton Thorne would be the quarterback again. And I think we saw how that went for them.
Right.
And I know Hugh Freeze is a great offensive coach and has coached up some really good quarterbacks in his day, and like even gotten guys maybe playing a little bit above their station.
Old Chuck Brewer.
There you go. For a little bit before, but then of course Malik Willis happens.
Right.
Like
Malik Willis.
Charlie Brewer was the precursor for Cam Rising's explosion at Utah,
right,
and Malik Willis at Liberty. Like, they should just give him infinite eligibility. If there's a guy you gonna like put a foot in their ass a little bit, and be like, hey,
we're bringing in Charles.
We're in Charlie Brewer, and then he's gonna start the first game, and then you're gonna be like, this is bullcrap. I really got to get in a weight room. All right, let's see.
Start really paying attention to these meetings.
Yeah. So this guy's just beat up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Poor guy.
So anyway, yeah. And anyhow, they but those are codes. But Hugh Freeze in particular, I'm really interested in because the transfer portal is about to close. And I think it's essentially closed for everybody who's not like at Arizona, Washington, San Jose State, and Bama right now.
Yeah, Alabama.
So, and then Michigan here in a few days. But Michigan's already lost a ton of guys. If Jim Harbaugh takes the Chargers job, which I think he's going to do. We've talked about that for weeks. I think Sharon Moore is going to get that job. So I don't really think they're going to have that same kind of problem. Like,
I think they retain a lot of people. They do have some really high star recruits coming in for quarterback, I believe, like a 4 and a 5 star, like on the table. But anyway,
actually, the one they have coming in for next year, goes to my high school.
Oh.
Carter Smith, yes. So anyway,
Taught him everything he knows.
Clearly, my high school is a lot better. When they're like, there's a kid going to Ohio State this year. There's a kid going to Michigan next year, and we had a kid going to Bethune-Cookman, and we're like, this is the best thing ever.
Right. We had one guy go to
amazing.
A&M, and we
Yeah.
were just like, oh my God, we've made it.
We had a bunch of good like baseball players. We had baseball players that played football. Like one of our guys played baseball at Notre Dame, another one played at Oklahoma State and UCF. We had those guys. We had some guys that played ball at smaller schools, but I never once saw like those things like we saw like a coach like, holy crap, is that Jim Harbaugh? Like I never had that. We never had like back then, like we never had Tom Osborne walk into the door and like, oh, he's here to see so-and-so. Like never had that happen.
Never knocked on the door.
Occasionally, like somebody would get a letter from a school like that, but it was always like, dear David, we are excited for your interest because you checked them off on the clearinghouse form, right? And so, but it's clearly things have changed.
Just had to get you out of there,
Yeah, exactly.
Several
it was
years ago.
just a 25-year like build to then. Anyway,
Hugh
but
Freeze,
let's talk.
incredible recruiter. Auburn can now kind of fill. They're not going to be the one that fills the gap that was left by Alabama, but they have an opportunity to jump. Like it's weird
They'll
saying-
benefit from it a lot.
It's
Maybe
weird
quicker
saying
than
that
others.
like Auburn, who has won national championships in recent memory, has a chance to like really solidify themselves. You know what I mean? But they have a chance to really sort of jump stations, and instead of being firmly number 2 in that area, being 1B, or potentially jumping Alabama, depending on how down they're going to be, considering they have no more players. But I they could also snipe Alabama's players. But what did we think of Hugh Freeze's first year?
I mean, it was
7-5, I believe.
Yeah, I mean, it was uneven. They lost in the bowl game. I mean, they didn't. Look, they were better. Like they finished stronger than they started. But Garrett, like
they also dropped games they definitely should have won.
yeah, I mean, they had that good game against Georgia for a minute, and then all those things that like they pushed Alabama to the absolute like.
I mean,
Took a miracle to
beat them, but like it's still.
I think it's what was to be expected, right? Like you had a team, you had a mass turnover there. You're bringing in a brand new defensive coordinator and Ron Roberts, who you've already moved away from. I feel like Hugh Freeze walked into a situation where he was able to kind of lay the foundation a little bit, and it's only going to continue to grow, and it's only going to help now that Saban's gone. But I think if you look at their season as a whole, while there could have been more things to be desired, yes, I think generally it was as good as it could have gotten for Hugh Freeze's first season there. Now, as far as like the quarterbacks go, I think they were in the hunt. I really feel like they were holding out hope and thought they were going to get Caden Salter. Now, when we had Caden on, he alluded to the degree plan wasn't there. You can buy into that what you want.
My degree
But
plan
we all
over
know.
there.
We all know. But I feel like if you're looking, if you're Hugh Freeze and you're Auburn, you can wait until this next portal window opens. You're more than likely going to have quarterbacks hitting the portal from Oregon, because Dante Moore and Dylan Gabriel are there. So somebody's going to hit the portal. Ohio State's going to have a bunch of people hit the portal. They probably can pick up a quarterback here in this next round. But as they head into spring ball, it's not much to work with Peyton Thorne.
Who was the cat at Texas State?
TJ Finley?
Let's bring him back, baby.
Yeah, I mean, look, and I do think they suffered from that. Like, I
did.
think, and look, if TJ Finley and Hugh Freeze aren't simpatico, then it's not going to work anyway.
Right.
But like he I think would have been better than Peyton Thorne. And look, right now, you look at the quarterbacks available in the portal, and there is not someone that you would go and say outside of Will Rogers. Like Will Rogers is the one that you would say like, but again, he played injured a lot last year.
Is he already in the Seattle metro area?
Yeah, he's
He
there.
was
He's there, but he's in the portal because Kalen DeBoer went to Alabama. Well, like Will Rogers is not transferring to Alabama. Like that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Like they're already loaded at quarterback. They already got one quarterback transfer in. They'll have some more out. Like it's just how it's going to work. So I don't know. Like that one at Auburn is really interesting to me in that how do you approach an offseason unsure at the most important position and hoping that like another year of Peyton Thorne, the guy who, Keon Coleman got tired of catching passes from, like these are like, let's go through the empirical evidence. Like you've got a 7-5 quarterback. That's what he is. He's a 7-5 quarterback. If you really want to make, again, Kalen DeBoer's there at Alabama. You probably have a year or two reasonably before
to get a good foothold.
To try to get to take your piece of the of the pie.
Yeah.
You have it there are, but here's the thing. How long did everybody around the University of Texas have to get a foothold before Texas got back to it?
A decade?
And they did more than they had a decade.
A couple of times. Yeah.
A couple of times. You've had time.
Oklahoma would argue that they always
Oklahoma
owned it.
had it, but
you're talking
as
about
far
the
as
state of Texas,
in the state of Texas, where you're comparing Auburn to Alabama, you've got a little bit of window right now where you can maybe grab a little bit of a bigger piece of the pie. But if Kalen DeBoer starts winning and winning soon within the next year or two, then it's not going to matter anymore. It's still going to be the same thing. Look, A&M had a better conference than Texas did by all metrics, right? They had all this opportunity. They had all this more money that they were
better
getting.
recruiting classes.
They had better recruiting classes. They had all these things that happened. And who is in a better spot right now? Texas, who's coming into the conference that A&M was in. Baylor capitalized a little bit in that they won conference titles while Texas was down.
Yeah.
TCU capitalized a little bit, but did anybody make any lasting
They didn't make a foothold that generations from now that you're going to be
exactly but you had a decade.
18 recruiting classes from now, they're not going to be remember when we won in 2010?
Yeah. You had a decade to where you had an opportunity to really, really put them in the ground, and you didn't. And so I'm not confident that Auburn can do that with Alabama, but it will be interesting to see what Hugh Freeze does, at least in the short term, of trying to weaken at least the in-state grab that Alabama had because of Nick Saban. Because part of Auburn's problem was, and I know they realized this, they were never going to have Nick Saban. So, as long as Nick Saban's at your biggest rival, you're just going to be swimming upstream.
Sorry.
So
the thing with Hugh Freeze, it was never the coaching, it was a little bit of the coaching. He could never really get over the hump, but it was never the recruiting.
He did beat Saban twice.
Yeah, so. It was never the recruiting or really the coaching. It was the other stuff.
Yeah.
So if he can just keep it straight and narrow, I think Auburn's on the right track.
Or use a burner phone.
Well,
look,
have three.
Have you never seen a spy movie? Have you never?
What's The Wire? I've never watched that once.
Yeah, have you ever seen a movie where people do illicit things and they don't use their work phone to do that?
Sir, we got an iMessage from you. Do you realize? Realize how backed up that is?
I'm not
it's in the cloud, brother.
But look, I'm not in any way advocating what Hugh Freeze did. I'm just saying he's still a coach at Ole Miss if he has a burner phone.
Yeah.
Bottom line, there's no
probably. Okay, I do want to talk about Texas A&M.
Well, he's a first-year coach.
Oh yeah, first year. So you're second year. Never mind.
Let's
ignore that. Matt Rule.
That's another topic. Let's talk about Matt Rule at Nebraska. Look, he went out and got one of the top quarterbacks in the country in Dylan Raiola to come there.
That's crazy
a legacy.
how that worked.
Yeah, that's a legacy. Yeah, and that didn't set off as many dominoes. Julian Sand's going to set off a lot of dominoes here eventually. It's going to be more of a slow burn on that. With him at Ohio State, it's probably going to send Aaron Noland into the portal eventually, and Lincoln Kineholz, who's a year before him, and all that. Devin Brown, Devin Brown's just not in the window right now, but as soon as the spring window comes open, he's going to be I'm in the portal because, they've kind of told you hey, you have to beat out Will Howard or else. Right. And we wouldn't have brought in Will Howard if we thought you were going to be the starter. So that's how it is. I hate it for him. I love it because he wears number 33. Baller move. But he can wear number 33 somewhere else. And
loving quarterbacks is I'm 28. Why? What?
Yeah. No, you should. You should. It's elitist to be no. I'm only wearing a number 19 and below.
I do want.
And if I wear 19, I'm kind of a goober. No.
I do want a quarterback to come out with just 53.
Yeah.
Okay.
Back in the day.
Yeah.
Yeah. You didn't matter.
You could play any position.
Yeah, they didn't have any eligible and ineligible numbers. That was just how it was. But no, I think Matt Rule as he establishes, he's got Glenn Thomas back on his staff.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can see the roots growing into that program there. Dylan Raiola might be their quarterback this year because they didn't go for a veteran. Like they were kind of in on Will Howard. They were kind of in on Kyle McCord like at the beginning. But once Raiola flipped, it's like, well, now we got to see what we're doing here because Nebraska's not had not to mention a quarterback like this, but a recruit like this in general in a decade. So like they've got to go all in on building around Raiola right now.
I sometimes like the idea of sitting, and we've seen sitting be the topic of conversation in the NFL. There's reasons why you can and can't do that. In NCAA football, I'm like, you kind of have it or you don't.
Yeah.
Pretty much. I mean, it is a step up. Obviously, people are bigger, stronger, faster the older they get in NCAA football. And sometimes, especially at these larger programs and these big-time games, you can see the quarterback get a little lost sometimes because it's like, oh, I was playing in front of 3,000 people. Now I'm playing in front of 103,000 people. And sometimes you can see them get a little wide-eyed. But just to go back to purely anecdotal evidence that I have, when Robert Griffin came in against Purdue, you're like, oh, yeah, he has it.
Yeah.
Like, it was just, like, that was it. He has it. Like, and just to go down the line of Baylor quarterbacks, like, Charlie Brewer wasn't the best quarterback, but he was the best quarterback on that team, and he had it right. Like, he could just play football. And I think we kind of get worked up on game experience and so on and so forth. I kind of think that you can see it right away, and you'll see it right away with Raiola. And you don't want to like shatter a 5-star's confidence, but also, who else are you gonna play at Nebraska?
Yeah. No, and look, they might get to spring where that they see it and they're like, all right, well, they're probably gonna have to bring in a transfer, but it's going to be a non-threatening transfer.
Yeah,
it's not going to be a Will Howard or Kyle McCord type that's going to necessarily keep him wet. That's just going to be there so that they can like balance it out and like not fill his plate too full first.
Yeah, not to say that you should not have a viable backup because we've seen that happen too, and then all of a sudden, guy gets his confidence shaken a little bit, and coaches in the NCAA like love to take out their quarterbacks. They just love to do it, and you'll see the confidence gets shaken, or the kid gets hit and he's never been hit that hard before, so he has to come out. And then the backup is 10 times worse than what you were running out there in the first place. You have to have a viable backup, but I think having one that is like, I don't know how you balance this act, but having one that you know is not a threat to come in is an interesting balancing act.
Well, or at least if he comes in, he's not a threat to keep the job.
Right.
Like forever. It's just he's there to help you. Like that's
rarely do we have a TCU situation.
Yeah.
From 2022.
Yeah.
I mean, that rarely happens.
Yeah. So but I could see, so he was at Nebraska, but I'll use that's what Casey Thompson's going to be at Oklahoma.
Exactly.
He's there to help Jackson Arnold. So whoever that Casey Thompson is that's in the portal for Nebraska, that's who they're going to get. Non-threatening to Dylan Raiola, like long-term. But short-term, maybe if you just need to
here's how you study the playbook.
Like those kind of things you can say, all right, you're going to get your time. We're going to share reps. There's a lot of different ways to do it so that you don't, again, you also don't want to ruin a guy by putting, and look, Dylan Raiola, and more power to him, but he's taken on a lot of pressure by committing to his legacy school. His dad, his uncle.
Not 100% yet.
That is, he's the guy he's trying to lead the charge back to being Nebraska again. And so, he's taking that on, and more power to him, but also, and you want a guy, I want guys, if I'm Matt Rule, I want guys that are yes, I'm ready for this. I want the challenge. But I also know that, I got to protect him from that because I can't be hey, I know that you said you wanted this challenge, so we didn't get anybody else. You got to be well,
Hey, you have to go be Christ,
you
have to go
like,
perform miracles, buddy.
Yeah, you are absolutely out here. We need you. Walk on water for us right away. Even Jesus built up to it.
33 years. This kid's 19.
He just didn't roll out all the stuff right away. It was look, it was different dates. It was walking on water, water to wine. It was all like, he wasn't doing all the tricks at one thing. So,
sometimes you have to work on those layering throws. You know what I mean? It takes a little bit of time.
You gotta go. But like that's what he has to do. Now,
the problem becomes, though, too, I want to add, is like sometimes with this is like, it sucks because if he like gets them to a point where like by the end of his career they win 10 games or whatever, then they start getting the next guy, and it's always funny because it's like Nebraska fans will remember, but unless he goes on the NFL and does amazing things, it's kind of funny to like, will we remember him for being the guy, or is it the guy after the first guy?
Yeah, I would say that the goal for Nebraska with Dylan Raiola is playoff by year 3. Like, which means being 12th. Like, be 12th by year 3. Be a team that's competing for the Big Ten title by year 3. Because then if you're doing that, then you can build off of that. The problem that Nebraska has now is they have nothing to build off. That anyone that they're recruiting, unless their parents are dyed-in-the-wool Nebraska fans, are familiar with.
Right.
Like, everything
recent success.
Yes. And, I hate to say it because it affects me, but me talking like if I'm Matt Rule telling them about Tommy Frazier and Bobby Newcomb and like the Wistrom brothers and all that they're the Mekavickas at fullback, like all that sounds like my dad telling me about Doak freaking Walker. Like, I get it. Like, he's probably even too old for my dad. I say that. But like, my dad, when he was a kid, John David Crow was at A&M.
Yeah.
So like I heard about John David Crow all the time because that was his dude when he was in like middle school and high school,
Right.
like John David Crow. So like that was his guy, right?
Yeah.
And so like, but me, like if, like Smokey's a Nebraska fan, when he tells people like, oh man, you guys should have seen that game against Florida in the Fiesta Bowl in 95. Tommy Frazier was great. And they're like 1995, like when cell phones were still in a bag.
You mean the late 1990s?
Yeah. Like, oh my God.
The late 20th century?
Cars, not all cars had power windows. You still had to.
Or
do this.
airbags.
Yeah. Or this. Yeah.
Your grandpa's work truck definitely smelled like smoke and didn't have airbags.
Yeah, exactly. Look, there were still like, there's going to be generations of people that never, and you might be on the edge of this. There were still smoking sections in restaurants when you were young.
Oh yeah, very like late, like in Livingston, Texas, it was like 2006.
Yeah,
like people were in there.
Yeah.
Like I think they just got rid of one, maybe like 5 years ago.
Like everything that like is still now is like grandfathered in, and they're just waiting for that guy to die of lung cancer before they're like, all right, you're not grandfathered in anymore.
It was so weird.
He's
because
not the city council going, I'm not budging.
Yeah, I love to taste ash with my Mexican food.
Yeah. So anyway, but yeah, they've got to do that. Another program that was in the same spot as Nebraska but has more juice is Colorado because because of who they hired. It's always going to get more attention than every other coach because he's Deion Sanders. Matt Rule's good at advertising his program. He's fantastic at it.
The best youth pastor money can buy, brother.
But the thing is you're not going to like. Again, it's like, it's going up against Jay-Z. Like you're not going to be more like, you can be like, listen, I've had way more hits recently than Jay-Z has, and like, good for you. Mm-hmm. You only exist because like you can't do it. Like you're not going on before Jay-Z. It's just how it is when it comes to the entertainment value of what Deion is. His is going to be really interesting as he moves into a new conference, and they've gotten a lot of transfers, and their high school recruiting has gone well, not as well as you would think.
It was bad to start, wasn't it?
But
it was like they had like 4 recruits or something.
But he's got a different thing. Like he's trying to make it so you can show that he works, and I think he will. It's just that, what they did last year was not tenable, and he knew it. Like he knew it was coming, and he did as much as he could to be like, look, these concepts work. What we're doing works. But he also didn't have the right offensive line coach in there. He didn't have the right defensive coordinator in there. He didn't have the right players in there.
He didn't have enough depth.
Except for a couple. Like, those was what happens with Deion.
I think his recruiting will tick up the next class. I think when you start looking at your 2025, 2026 classes, when you can regularly sell to kids in Texas, like, hey, you play here, you're going to be in the Big 12 conference. You can when we're on the road, your family can come see you. There's different elements that you can work there that I think you'll see his classes continue to grow. And also being able to still getting back into Florida with UCF and utilizing his relationships there, I think that will help as well.
Yeah, I think.
Are you closer in Lubbock to Colorado than you are to like Houston?
Probably.
Oh,
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, but those are the things. Like, that's the one thing that Colorado and the Pac-12, like, it made a lot of sense in like certain like university goals sense. Like, well, we have these kind of academic programs. Like, it lined up that way. But sports-wise, they were just never a fit. Mm-hmm. Like nobody ever cared. Like, they tried to make Oregon and Colorado this rival, and they were both like, I mean, we don't want to lose to you, but I mean, I'm not going to think about it after it happens.
Yeah.
You know, like this is like, oh, hey, Oregon, hey, Colorado, are we going to play this game today? All right, good job. Hope none of you get hurt. You too. All right.
Everybody over there is just like more obsessed with what weed they're going to smoke.
Well, I mean, again, like that's the other thing is you try to make a rivalry out of two legal weed states, not going to happen.
No thanks, man. It's too chill.
Look, man, I don't want to like, look.
What is competition anyway?
Yeah, yeah. Look, when you go through the stands at Oregon or Colorado in that game, and you count how many blonde dudes with dreadlocks there are, you're not really going to have a raucous crowd. Like, I'm just telling you.
And my name's Xander. Oh, of course it is.
What else would it be?
Yeah.
Where are the rest of them? Like, we're all here.
Yeah.
So no, I like
Blaze.
But yeah, Colorado has one of the more interesting ones. Because they're transitioning into a new league.
Means the same with Arizona State too.
Yeah.
Because I mentioned
Excellent transition.
I mentioned Kenny Dillingham because I think he's awesome. Like,
Yeah.
I think he's like just weird and crazy enough, and he's also not much older than me, which makes me feel sad. But like he's like 35.
Yeah.
And the way that he took on, he was undermanned all season, but the way that they played against, I believe it was the USC game that year. And look, it was a precursor to, everyone can score on USC. But it was unbelievable the amount of stuff he was just willing to try because he knew he didn't have enough players. He knew he recognized the personnel that he had, and he took over play calling for that game. And they were doing double flea flicker reverses and like halfback passes. And I love when a coach is just like, throw it all out. I don't care. You know, I love when a coach recognizes what he has in front of him. And he's just like the right attitude for Arizona State, which you got to kind of realize where you're at, you know?
Yeah. No, it is.
Be where your feet are. And I think he's like, party school? Let's party, brother. It feels right.
Well, I mean, he's an alum, so he knows.
Yeah.
But like the other thing is Arizona State, Garrett and I say this all the time, is the most untapped resource. Like the university itself is really cool. Like they've had very poor leadership in their athletic department. We all know that. Their AD is leaving.
Terrible,
like
yeah.
They've had NCAA problems. Like they've got all these things going on. Their president really didn't understand athletics like at all. And that's why they were in the spot that they were like, they had to call the Big 12 and be like, okay, we get it now. Like, oh, really? You had to, like, everyone else had to leave for you to go, okay? And, but they're an untapped resource.
Right.
Like, they're a very untapped resource because, again, and that's what the best part about, like, to me, the most functional part about the Big 12 growing, because you can't, like, there's only so many brands. Like, you know, you can, like, if you think about the Big 10 and the SEC is like malls, you know, like malls succeed because they have big brands in them, right? So like you're not going to have like a wildly successful mall that's just all boutique shops and bespoke stores. Like you need a Gap and a Banana Republic and all that. Like the SEC is like the mall you go into and they've got everything, right?
Yeah.
The Big 10 for the most part now is a mall you go into. They've got everything.
Occasionally an Orange Julius is hanging around.
Yeah, exactly. The Big 12 is kind of like that, but they're not like, they're more of the like, let's make sure how we can do economics. Like, yeah, we're not in every city, but the cities we're in are big
And
for the most of the new ones.
is
Like
the Hillsboro Outdoor Mall.
yeah, there's only 2 stores open. Like there's still a Nike outlet just because Nike needs a place to put all their crap.
Bath and Body Works. That also closed down on its own, but there's still lotion in there.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just storage essentially for Nike for shoes from 1901 or whatever, you know, 1901, like 1991. But yeah, now that like those things are like that's where it is. But with Arizona State coming in and Phoenix being like, you have an opportunity to really kind of grab hold of something. You and Arizona both that you haven't probably,
Both those schools are so interesting because it'll seem like they will always get a coach in there that will just randomly reel off a 10 or 11 win season. But the rest of the seasons, they're like 4-8, 6-6, 7-5, back down, and then boom, 12 wins. I don't know if they've ever won 12 wins.
But you get like a 9-3 season where they lose a couple close games.
I feel like Arizona and Arizona State are perpetually 9-win teams. I don't know how that happens.
Well, and even less.
Poor leadership.
Yeah.
It's poor leadership in their athletic department is what it is.
Well, look, Arizona's just fired their athletic director yesterday. So they have a $240 million budget shortfall. So there are, we've gone through pretty much every one. We left out Cincinnati and Purdue, but
Jeff Brom, Louisville.
Jeff Brom in Louisville,
Back.
I'm not yet. He's loading up in the transfer portal. He's right. Again,
Talk about a wild man at coach, by the way.
Nobody also, the whole city of Louisville and the whole alumni were like, who would you like at coach? And Jeff Brom. And then for a couple of years, Louisville's like, how about this guy who's not Jeff Brom? And they're like, we're only going to call him not Jeff Brom. We're not going to acknowledge them as a human being until they're Jeff Brom. And so it would just be coach.
Yeah.
How are you, coach? How's our defense going to be, coach, not Jeff Brom? That's what it is.
Name on placard.
Yeah, exactly. That's who it was. And then, so he knows he has the backing of the community. I think he's doing a really good job of I'm not going to let you down. I'm going to use every tool
at
my
this season.
Yeah. And they've loaded up in the portal. They've loaded up. Absolutely. When we come back, let's talk NFL playoffs.
Yes.
Royden. Your Texans.
I'm not sad.
Are out. Look, my Cowboys out.
Not sad.
Jack's Packers are out.
My team didn't even make the playoffs.
Yeah.
Go Washington.
Bunch of not sad boys.
Hey, guess what? We're all in the same place.
Yeah. 1, 2, 3, Cancun.
Hey, not.
Got a franchise quarterback who's winning the playoffs.
He has, how many playoff wins does he have?
How many playoff wins does Dak have?
2. So he still has more.
Yeah.
He's been the starter.
Let's not get in the weeds here.
Don't worry about
Get
it.
in the weeds. Anyway, look, there's 31 losers in the NFL,
Yeah.
and let's just face it, there's 31.
Sports are for losers.
Yes. So,
If you really
anyway,
do the
when we
math.
come back, we'll talk about the championship game matchups this weekend. This is the Triple Option on 365 Sports.
If your business is like most, you need things done quickly. But if you're still tying your critical applications together on multiple shared public networks, you've probably been feeling the slowdown. And that's no good for business. A private UPN fiber network can get you and your business moving at the speed of light. Whatever you need, we can build it. Internet, Metro Ethernet, Waves, dark fiber. We deliver custom private networks and are focused on business customers only. Our next generation 100% fiber optic infrastructure offers you low latency and ultra scalable bandwidth with speeds up to 100 gigabit to run your critical applications. Your connection won't be limiting your performance anymore. It's diverse and scalable, so it can grow and change as your business grows and changes. And with a secure carrier-grade private network, you'll have all the reliability you need. Contact UPN today to learn more. Fast just got faster.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com. Welcome to the Triple Option. Here's your host, Paul Catalina.
Welcome back, Paul Catalina and Royden Ogletree here on the Triple Option. And
Uh-oh.
so, what you don't know is
5 of
Royden
those
is
a
an
day.
arsonist, and he
Yeah.
set that fire. No. He will do anything to succumb to the almighty flame. No.
Called me in the night.
I want to talk about the NFL playoffs. Look, you're a huge Texans fan.
Yeah.
In the first half, they availed themselves very well. And well, I mean, look, it was tough.
Look, they were there.
They're there, but for both the 49ers and the Ravens, neither of them had played in 20 days.
Right.
Or the starters especially hadn't played in 20 days. So the starters looked like a bunch of people who hadn't played in 20 days. And then once they got the first halves over in both those games, it was like, all right, now let's we're the rust is knocked off and let's go.
Especially for Baltimore. Like it kind of came down, it made it a little bit more shaky for the 49ers, but I mean, clearly they're the two best teams.
Yeah.
But the Baltimore game, as soon as Fairbairn missed that kick to go into the half, I was like, surely this won't, come back to haunt us at all. And then they immediately scored a touchdown in like 5 minutes after the half.
Yeah.
And so it was never, it shouldn't have been as close as it was in the first half. But yeah, you're right. It's like Lamar Jackson had to kind of figure out how to play football again for 2 minutes, and their receivers had to figure out how to like get open. And once, really what it came down to is once they figured out that, we can just run it down their throats, and they had like 42 carries or 250 yards.
Yeah.
That's when it was over.
Yeah.
But also not spying Lamar Jackson was a choice.
It happens.
Always a choice.
It happens. And look, I think the Texans' arrows pointed up, the Packers' arrows pointed up.
Yeah.
The team I feel that's got the biggest problems after a loss is the Bills, because the Bills have a ton of free agents and they have no cap space. So
they have a lot of dead cap money. They've been kind of like
they're going to have to push that dead cap money off into the future and then try to win with what they have in draft picks. I don't want to this is the end of the road.
Sure,
but like at
Diggs
least
wants to be there too.
At least in the next this feels like for this iteration of the team, that was maybe their best shot before they have to do some rebuild, just because they've got expiring contracts that they're not going to be able to keep all these guys on this team. And look, sometimes you let people go and it doesn't hurt you, but they've got a lot of expiring contracts.
It always does. And I mean, they really were kind of robbing Peter to pay Paul, because that Von Miller contract's going to kind of come back to haunt him. They didn't have to give him, obviously he had a great year for them, but they didn't have to give him as much money as they did, it seemed like. And, Stephon Diggs wanted a new contract, and now he probably doesn't even want to be there anymore for some reason, even though he's had career years with Josh Allen. And then eventually, they had to pay. Did they pay Josh Allen already? Yeah, they paid him $300 million or whatever it was. So, and that's become the problem too, is the cap continues to go up as the NFL becomes more popular. And you could fill this room with what I don't know about the salary cap in the NFL.
Yeah.
But the problem is that now if you have a star quarterback, you now have to pay him like NBA players are getting paid.
Look, the Cowboys are up.
Or MLB players are getting paid.
Here's the thing. The Cowboys, you want to know there's no changes, because they can't make I'll tell you why Mike McCarthy's there. Because you're going to bring in a new coach that's kind of signaling a new era, right? And signaling a new era. I hate it when I make up words. But signaling a new era. And if you do that, then you're not in the position right now, unless you're going to completely tank this next season, to let Dak ride out on this last year and then move on. I read a great Over the Cap, the guy who does Over the Cap, I can't remember his name, but overthecap.com, you can learn a lot about it there.
Okay.
But he wrote an article about Cowboys can do several things. None of them are devastating, but none of them are ideal. So they can let Dak play out in a year, or they can renegotiate Dak and push us off into the future a little while, and then kind of go forward with free agents, which they don't do, and try to win now with Dak and Mike McCarthy, which seems like the best plan. I don't know if they're going to do that, but they've got to extend. They've already extended Trayvon Diggs, so that's done. But they've got to extend CeeDee Lamb and Micah Parsons here soon, and Tyler Smith after that. So they've got extensions coming, and kind of the revolving door of people coming in and out. Anyway, so you've got this problem with Dak and the fact that you can't just kind of let him walk and then expect to be fine. And
it's weird place to be when you don't have, I think Dak's great, and he probably should have gotten way more MVP love than he actually did. But it's weird when you don't have someone that is a consensus, one person has won Super Bowls, and it's been Patrick Mahomes or Tom Brady. Yeah. And it's weird when you don't have a consensus top 5 guy. Yeah. And Dak, depending on where you have him, will shift into that or out of that. But the problem is he's not solidified in there. But they're the deadfall from from okay to good quarterback to absolute trash quarterback is crazy. So if you have an okay to good quarterback, you have to pay them money, right?
Yeah.
Because what are the Cowboys going to do? They can't go get another quarterback. They don't have the draft capital to like trade up to go do it, or who are they going to pay? So yeah, you got to stick with Dak, and also you don't want to like turn it over to a new coach and hope that they are as good as what Mike McCarthy brought you to be.
So so if the replacement isn't Bill Belichick, right? Or
Right.
somebody who's got skins on the wall, which there's not that many people. So if it's not him, then the new coach is going to be probably a new type guy.
Yeah, I like Vrabel, but
I don't think it would be him. Like if they're really going to go in a new direction, like then maybe they go back to the Jimmy Johnson direction of here's the best college coach. Like this is the next guy. Like it's going to be Harbaugh and he's not exactly new, but like he would be new in this sense, or Lincoln Riley or something like that. Like we're going to try to change the whole game, and do this and bring in this guy. Well, then you tell them like you're going to do this with Dak Prescott, and you have to win with Dak Prescott. Like they're not at that point yet. Plus they've won 12 games 3 years in a row, so they might as well try to like figure out a way through with this roster. Considering the NFC is not exactly like a crap load of world beaters. Like
no, the AFC is the heaviest like quarterback discrepancy that I've seen in a long time.
Yeah, and look, the NFC's best QBs this year were all made it like to the end, like in various regards in the playoffs. But they're not like, again, it's not like if Jim Harbaugh takes that Chargers job, he could have them up in the division and winning with Justin Herbert. He makes a couple good decisions right away because that's there. Justin Herbert is an elite QB with a bad team, and bad coaching around him. But like they have so many good quarterbacks when you've got Allen and Burrow and Mahomes and Jackson and
now Stroud,
Stroud and Lawrence and
what you don't want to be is kind of where the Saints have been, is where they're really pushing the dead cap money down the line, and eventually it has to bottom out, and they keep pushing it and pushing it and pushing it. And I think they have, somebody would have to correct me, they have like $50 million of like dead cap money or something like that, maybe more than that.
Yeah.
And so they keep like okay, well, we're going to go 8 and 9.
Yeah.
Because we can't afford to fill out the rest of the roster, but we got these group of guys that we've paid. And you don't want to be in that position, especially in a division that's as good as the NFC East. But where you want to be is kind of where Green Bay is going to have to get a little tricky, because eventually they're going to have to pay Jordan Love because he's coming to the end of that rookie deal. But you want to try to be where the Texans are, where actually San Francisco still is, and eventually they're going to have to pay Brock Purdy, and that's going to be incredible discourse. But where you can fill out the rest of the roster in this very slim 5-year gap, and hope to God that you can win. And you can kind of see what's happening with Kansas City, where it's like Patrick Mahomes, even though he only had like 215 yards, is really having to elevate a very limited cast.
Yeah, and like they got Rashee Rice is starting to come on.
Yeah,
and so that's going to be their dude, and they're gonna fix that. But it just shows you how well run they are.
Yeah,
that they can have a year where they're just like kind of meh by their standards, and then the playoffs start, and it's like, man, no more. Like,
right.
We did this. Listen, we did this on cruise control.
Yeah.
We did this with Travis Kelce going to friggin' Germany or Brazil or wherever to see his girlfriend have a concert on the bye week, and we were fine.
Yeah. Do you think we were serious with the Kadarius Toney stuff? Do you really think we were serious with that?
Yeah.
Come on, we were just trying stuff out.
Yeah. So, but that brings us down to, look, you can win, like, anybody can win anywhere if you have the right people, and that's the Lions. They've got the right people finally for the first time in forever. They've got the right people, and they're going to, I think America is rooting for a Lions-Ravens Super Bowl.
You don't really have a heart.
I mean, we've seen 49ers-Ravens. I was there. I know. I was in New Orleans. I wasn't at the game. I was at a bar with Q. Q.
Yeah.
Q. My favorite
Your
story
lights
to tell,
went out in a different way.
Well, no, his lights went out. He passed out at halftime in the bar we're in. The blackout happened. He woke up and he's like, "No, it's still halftime." I'm like, "No, Q, they literally played 7 minutes, and then the lights went out." And then so he's like, "No, man, it's halftime." I was like, "No, buddy, no." I've
been here.
He made it to Beyonce and then was out. And then it was like, give this guy some water and some fried shrimp, and let's keep
keep that on rotation.
Keep that on rotation for a little while.
I want Lamar to succeed so badly. I also am like just not a fan of dynasties after 20 years of the Patriots. So having Kansas City, incredibly well-run organization, and we all should aspire to have our football teams ran like that and hope to God that we can find a Patrick Mahomes in the rough. But I think that I don't know, man. I don't have anything other to elaborate other than I'm done with dynasties. I'm just done.
Yeah. Well,
just let somebody else win.
Here's the deal.
It's also nobody's won back-to-back Super Bowls in like 2 decades.
Yeah.
But
the best run organizations are the ones that make it there. Look, the Ravens are an excellent organization. They draft from the middle to the bottom of the draft every single year, and they always get players that help them because they know how to identify talent and what works for them, and they don't change their systems. So,
something said about also like keeping John Hunt. I mean, I know like if you win a Super Bowl in the NFL, it seems that like you'll keep your job forever, regardless of where you like how good you are or not, or how much you underperform given your expectations. It seems like you just win one and like you're locked down. But also keeping the same guy speaks volumes forever. If you know that he's actually a good coach, it didn't drop one way or the other.
Yeah, exactly. So look, the Lions finally have people in place that are running it the way that
How do you feel about Dan Campbell?
I love him.
A&M guy? Like, obviously,
I love him. And it's not just that. Like, we talked about this a little bit yesterday, Garrett and I did, in that I don't hear rhetoric from coaches like he, and I don't say rhetoric like in the but like the rah-rah stuff from coaches at many levels other than like high school coaches. Like he's got that vibe of a high school coach.
Right.
And in a good way, right? Like in that this is an organization that needed a little bit of rah-rah. Like they needed someone with energy to come in and ignore the past and say we can only deal with what we can have now. And we're going to play physical and we're going to be like this aggressive team. They needed that. And he got ridiculed for it. But what was the guy supposed to do? Like, I'm the coach in Detroit and we're going to play Detroit Lions football.
It's
and
cold
blah, blah,
here.
blah. You know, we owe it to the fans who've been loyal through everything. Blah, 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 blah. Detroit needed a firebrand. And they got the right one, who's not only just a guy who's out there. Sometimes guys just bark. I mean, that's all they are. But Dan Campbell has some substance to it. He's well respected around the league, other coaches, but like he has a button to him that maybe other guys don't, and that's fine. Like, look, not everybody has to be a rah-rah guy, but sometimes an organization needs some rah-rah, and they got it from Dan Campbell.
He doesn't strike. He strikes me as a guy that like doesn't believe in ghosts. And they just needed a guy is in there that was just like, none of this is real. No curses or anything. Nothing matters. Or he's a guy that really believes in it and like performed an exorcism in the middle of the field. But there was a tweet, and I wish I could remember who it was by, but it said that the best coaches in the NFL right now are either nerds or linebackers. And that kind of falls into place when you have like Mike McDaniel. But on the other end of the spectrum, I know he wasn't a linebacker, but you have like Dan Campbell.
Well, it's tight end.
Yeah, so it's just like nerds or jocks. Like anybody in between that's like, I grew up in this coaching tree. It's like, no, I've been like studying plays for like 1,000 years, or I'm going to hit you in the face when you come out of the tunnel.
D'Amico Ryan.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly, yeah.
Which I think he's actually a good blend of both because I think he's a really good football coordinator. Dan Campbell, I don't know how much coordinating he does, but it really is like, somebody pointed out that he actually, what he says in halftime is what he comes out to the reporters, and they're like, "What'd you say to him in halftime?" And he's like, "I just told you what I said to them in halftime." It's like, we need to play better. Like he's like actually honest about what he said to him. It was like we were playing like crap.
Yeah.
Well, what did you tell him? That.
Yeah. I'm not going to tell you two different things.
Yeah.
I don't have the time to say two different things. And some coaches can do that. Like, can go in their locker room and they can dress other guys and they come out and they're like, look, I just told them that, we got to focus a little bit more.
Yeah.
We're good. And like, you think about
really, they're cussing them up and down, but yeah.
No, sometimes I can tell. Like, the other thing is I grew up also with like Bobby Bowden and Steve Spurrier who had no secrets. Like, they really had no secrets. Like, both those guys, like, you go to Steve Spurrier, like, well, I'm going to tell you what's going on here. We got a defense that's not playing really good right now. I'm about to go in there and tell them that.
Yeah.
Our defensive ends are getting too far off the field, and we're not doing well in the run game. We got to close that up. And I'll talk to our coaches and our players about that. I'm not too happy with the performance offensively either. And Bobby Bowden would come out. I don't think he ever really he was not the rip into people. He always had consiglieres for that. He'd give them here's what we need to focus on. And he's like, I'm going to turn it over to Coach Andrews here, and I'm going to step out of the room and pray while you guys get eaten alive. But he'd be like, yeah, we're not playing with a lick right now. Our quarterback's got a bit of a stomach bug, and we got to give him some Pepto at halftime. We'll talk about that. Defense just not doing well. And so they would say those things, and then you get the coaches come up and we're just not. Things aren't going well. But
you also had Belichick that has been the pinnacle of coaching for years, and people tried to imitate him, where it's what he would tell the reporter, well, you have to play better, which is not what he's telling them in halftime.
I think, and here's the best thing I can say about Dan Campbell is, listen, do your act. Don't do somebody else's act.
Right.
Nobody is a successful musician or comedian or entertainer or anything because they're doing somebody else's act. That's why a lot of Belichick's assistants haven't worked out, because instead of going and doing their act and losing what they learned from Bill Belichick, they're going and trying to do Belichick's
the years
act.
of the Bill O'Brien, not answering questions to the media or being snarky to the media. It was dude, you're not good enough to warrant this
you can't do this.
Yeah.
Look, Bill Belichick is Chappelle.
Yeah.
Okay? Chappelle can do Chappelle. If you're going to come and try to be like him, people are going to be like, well, why don't I just go watch that show?
Right.
That's
I'll
what
pay
they're
the
going to do.
extra money.
I'll pay the extra money for that because I feel I'm seeing a worse version of it.
Right.
You have to do your own thing. The guy, look, John Harbaugh does his own thing. Andy Reid does his own thing. Dan Campbell certainly does his own thing. And Kyle Shanahan does his own thing. I'll even tell you, Kyle Shanahan doesn't even do his dad's thing. He's different than that. Yeah, he's not, there are certain concepts that they have that are the same, and you can tell where he learned. But I'm looking at Kyle Shanahan, and I don't see the 97 Broncos. I see Kyle Shanahan's team. I see, a little bit of the DNA, but the
play action stuff. But
it's got more than one parent.
The amount of the motion and things that he does is interesting. This game, it'll be in San Francisco because they've had two. They're the number 1 seed, but I don't know who I like. It was raining and just poor conditions. Green Bay had been playing out of their minds. Probably should have won that game, but also you have a team equally as on fire and up and ready to play with Detroit. I don't know. It probably ends up being a game where San Francisco come out. Deebo Samuel is actually healthy, and they blow him out by 20.
Yeah,
because Brock Purdy is hitting all of his underneath throws and everything is going great. But I also just think something weird is happening with Detroit. And look, not for nothing, if the season ended today, this is the best season Detroit football has had
ever.
Well, 1960 when it was called the World Championship.
Well, yeah. Again, when they were winning before, the coach would be like, listen, buddy, come on, get a cigarette, calm down. That was a rough drive. Yeah. Maybe have another one before you go back out there.
Here's a Fanta.
If you get a couple of smokes and a Coca-Cola in, you'll feel better.
It's an incredible picture with the Kansas City Chiefs.
Let's everybody go in at halftime, have some meatloaf. Let's, I feel like we're not doing all that well.
Here's a big bowl of pasta, brother.
Yeah. Eat this now. Hey, I think I pulled my hamstring. All right.
Tape it up.
Tape it up. Just run after. Pull that other guy's hamstring, and then you'll be even. That'll be what we do. Well, Royden, always great to see you.
Hey.
We've come to the end of our time. Thanks to Garrett. No thanks to Jack. He's worthless and stupid, and I hate him. No, that's mean. I don't really mean that. I'm still mad about the whole Packers Cowboys thing, and he'll have that over me for a year.
He's had it for a while.
He's had it for a while. Yes, I thought a couple years ago they went up to Lambeau and beat the Packers in overtime.
Yeah,
and I thought, all right,
we've exercised these demons.
There we go. They've turned the corner. And then that very same year, the Packers came to Dallas and Aaron Rodgers threw the best pass that's ever been thrown in the history of all sports.
Wow.
It was the best play that's ever been made by an individual. Like, it's just...
It sucks that he is where he is today because he was so good at football.
Yeah, well...
I don't want to get into that, but anyway.
Yeah, so anyway. But thanks to all of you who watched today. Coming up on the show later, we're going to talk about Louisville's Portal Hall with our good friend Alexis Cubitt because they've got quantity and quality. I mentioned in the top 5 yesterday. I thought we would dive into Louisville because we've been talking about them kind of in the aggregate, but not like direct at them. We'll also have Jake Fisher talking about Arizona and all the stuff they've got going on there, new coach and all that.
These are called deep teases.
We've got Off the Radar. We have Baylor assistant coach Jared Anderson today, and we have John McClain today. So we have a lot going on today on the show. So that's all coming up at 3 o'clock. This is the Triple Option on 365 Sports. See you later, everybody.
If your business is like most, you need things done quickly. But if you're still tying your critical applications together on multiple shared public networks, you've probably been feeling the slowdown.